Hello, gang. I am back with a new series and such an exciting episode. I am so chuffed to be interviewing the most amazing person who has decided to come on this podcast. I'm really chuffed. It's taken a while. We've got there. So I would like to introduce you to Lady Knighton, who is joining me. This is my very first lady. I cannot tell a lie. So before we get stuck into the bulk of the interview, could you please introduce yourself and what you do?
Hi, Jess. Well, it's wonderful to be on the podcast. Thank you very much for having me. First of all, please call me Caitlin. And secondly, actually, before I introduce myself, I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you do for the Millspo community and the network and everything that this does for partners, spouses, other halves, both in terms of the business side, which no doubt we'll talk about, but also the personal side and the wellbeing side. And as we both know, all that support that goes to the wider community supports the RAF family and those who are actually serving as well. So thank you. Not sure I'm supposed to start with that, but we're going to start with that. And then you asked me to introduce myself. So I'm Caitlin Knighton. By a bizarre twist of fate, I seem to be married to the Chief of the Air Staff, which we'll come to, I'm sure, but nothing that I'd ever expected, never mind him. I am a mum of two gorgeous girls who are now adults, and I'm a partner in a law firm. So I've always worked, apart from maternity leaves, and I'm a partner in a law firm, a national law firm, specialising in family law. So lots of different hats in there, but yeah, that's me.
And so inspirational. I always wonder how people do it. I'm currently still married to my RAF husband and still working, and I wonder how I do it, let alone anybody else. But you are a partner in a law firm, which isn't messing around. It's like a serious job. So what do you do for your job in your law firm?
What do I do? Um, so as a partner, I've been a partner since 2007, and so really it's a business owner. It's just a business owner of a sort of mini business within a bigger business, because the firm I'm a partner in has got 130 odd partners. It's a national firm and does all sorts of different types of work, and I'm one of 8 family partners. At Mills and Reeve, which is the firm I'm a partner at. So I'm in charge of my little bit of the business. So it's like a mini business within a bigger business. So I have a team of people who do family law. I do family law work too. We do all the work with the clients, but we also have to think about how we get the work in. So we do quite a lot of business development and marketing, which is a bit quirky for family law because you can't really target it directly, obviously. And I'm responsible for the delivery of the finances and getting the bills paid and all of those sorts of things too, as well as being part of a teeny tiny owner as part of a much bigger business. So it's a kind of quite a very varied role, really.
And
Starts with the clients and the people.
and a busy job, no doubt.
Yeah, it is a busy job. It is a busy job. And I suppose my role has changed over the years. What I did when I was first a partner in 2007, when I had my kids were 7 and 5 at that stage, to what I've done sort of in recent years, most particularly since Rich became chief, has sort of changed over the years. And I'm really lucky that the firm that I work for, that I'm a partner in, has been prepared to sort of flex and sort of ride the wave with me. So yeah, there's been a lot of hard work, but also a lot of luck and a lot of conversations along the way.
And a lot of balancing big careers in your family with you, especially with two children. How help me, help again.
Oh,
How do we do this?
like most people, just a muddling on. It's muddling through. It's kind of taking each day as it comes. I think I was thinking about this when I was thinking about talking to you today, and I think one of the things for me has been just to take each posting at a time. I think if you said to me, I mean, neither me nor Rich have got sort of from military families. You know, my parents were not in the military. Some grandparents and wider family did military service in the war, but we're not from military families either of us. So I didn't really have any insight on know what to expect, which has some upsides and some downsides. But I think if you'd said to me at the start of Rich and I met at university, so we've been together a long time on this journey. Hate the word journey, but this journey. But if you said to me at the start, this is how life will unfold, not so much obviously doing the amazing job that he's doing at the moment, but the sort of vagaries and roller coaster of military life, I would have been quite sort of gobsmacked and overawed and how the heck am I going to do this? Or are we going to do this? I think just because it's each posting has the downside of being 2 or 3 years, but that's an upside too, because if you can figure out how you're just going to make it work for yourselves and your family in that short period of time, then you take the next posting when that comes and the next posting when that comes. Whereas I think for me, if I'd looked too far ahead, I would have just been completely outfaced. So yeah, there was quite a lot of sort of taking it one post at a time, muddling on. And I think, I mean, actually, probably sometimes taking some quite hard decisions. And I think every military family would probably recognise that there's some difficult decisions to be made along the way. So when our girls were 7 and 9, we decided to buy our own house, sort of so that me and the girls could stay put. So we bought a house. I was working quite locally to where we bought. The girls went to local schools. So the kind of homeschool work triangle for us was quite small. And that was a kind of decision we made to get our girls through secondary school in sort of in the local area. But the downside of that, of course, has meant that Rich was away all week. And so he was the one that was away and traveling and was only home at weekends. And we didn't really see him much during the week, depending on where the posting was. So I'm not saying that was a good decision or necessarily certainly not the right decision for everybody at all. And obviously postings just worked out that way. If Richard ended up, I don't know, being posted abroad for 2 years, we'd have gone, in that period. But that happened to be what just about worked for us. But I'm not saying that's a right way. Every military family does it in every different way. Their kids are different, postings are different, jobs are different, etc. But that's probably partly a consequence also of my job not being hugely mobile. Yes, I could have moved to another office within the firm or moved solicitors' firms, but it's not that solicitors' firms are relatively traditional. My firm's quite a modern firm, but relatively traditional. So moving every 2 or 3 years might have been quite difficult. So that's quite a long-winded way of saying we just muddle through, which I think is what most people do.
I think we do, and I think it's the unpredictability of it. It's because we're moving in the summer and we don't know where we're going, we don't know what's happening at all. But there's no point trying to plan for that. You kind of go, well, if we go here, should we do this? And if we went here, should we do this? But ultimately, you just have to start again and muddle through and just do the best you can, really.
Yeah, I think Rich and I used to have quite a lot of conversations in our early years when I would do quite a lot of what if this and what if that, and he used to say to me, just stop what ifing. let's tackle it when we know, which is kind of all very well and good, and of course he was right. But and I've got better at that over the years. But at least initially, and particularly when the kids were little, you want to know what the plan is and you want to start implementing the plan, whatever that happens to be. So yeah, don't think too far ahead. Take one hosting at a time and stop what ifing. I think those are my tips.
I think
Much as they are.
for the sake of my marriage, I might have to do that. My poor husband is just like, I know nothing. But yes, it's fiddly, but nice to know that you've had this experience, and it's handy to have that tip. So I'm sure he will listen to this and also agree and probably tut at me a little bit. But you mentioned that your law firm isn't as traditional as it could be. So I kind of want to dive into the whole concept of you going to work one day and going, hi, so my husband's in the Air Force and he's got this new job. He's Chief of the Air Staff and he's been knighted and now I'm an actual lady. So how I can imagine the sort of dynamics between people knowing you as Caitlin that goes to work and then your other persona, which is Chief of the Air Staff's wife. There can't be much. I mean, there is a crossover because it's you and you're a human, and your personality shines through. But did your colleagues think this is a bit odd, really?
Yeah, I suppose. Well, I thought it was a bit odd, to be honest. My colleagues, the whole lady bit, and also the job that Rich has got. I think, well, various things. I suppose because I've always had, I think probably in common for quite a lot of people who have an aspect of work or work periods of their life, it becomes sort of part of who they are. And so I've always had this independent part of me that is a working part of me, and Rich has always had that part of him that's the Air Force part of him. And yes, there's been overlaps when he was the station commander and at Wittering and various other times, but I've always sort of got on with my own sort of independent life. So my team at work knew that Rich was in the Air Force and sort of knew what he did. But they didn't really know what he did before. And then when he took on this job, which was a completely out of the blue, first engineer, etc. Nobody was more shocked than me. Although I love my husband to bits and he is amazing, we were all quite surprised. Um, I did I did wonder how it would go talking to work. So there's talking to the immediate team who were just chuffed and pleased and thought it was lovely. And then there's talking to work about, look, actually, can I change my role slightly at work, which I asked to do when Rich took on this job, so that I could attend some of the events, do some of the things with the amazing military charities, and generally see my husband occasionally because he's traveling a lot or around the country a lot. And so the team were just amazing and delighted. And the business, to my not surprise, because it's a great partnership, were equally delighted. And when I asked for a bit of flexibility to do my role slightly differently and cut back on the number of days that I do and do it a bit more flexibly so that I could fit in some other things, they, being A, the amazing partnership they are, B, having already signed up to the military covenant, so getting it, said yes, of course, and could really see the benefits for me as an individual, for the family, and also for the wider business at work, to see that there isn't just one way of being a partner at the law firm.
Yeah. And you mentioned events there. So you must do you choose to do the things? Do you have to do them? Is it an official role? Is it expected? How does it work? Or is it on your own terms? Do you get to choose what you want to do?
So I'm very lucky in that, well, I took over from an amazing woman, from Katie Wigston, Lady Wigston, and a series of other amazing women before her. And obviously my immediate experience was Katie, and Katie also worked. So she had already she told me what aspects of the role, if there is a role with a small r, that she did, and the sort of charity involvement that she'd had. And so that was sort of already there was an example there, and I'd seen other chiefs' wives previously and how they did it. So I suppose I took that and then modified it to put my own kind of thoughts around it. Is there an expectation? No, nobody, there is no finger wagging and thou shalt and you really must and don't you know you're the chief's wife. There's really, really none of that. And in fact, even the senior military spouses that I've spoken to, of many retired people going back, they're all actually, those who didn't have the opportunity to work are absolutely delighted that I do, and other spouses, chief spouses have, and current chief spouses do work. So I think the sort of idea that you definitely wouldn't is really quite historic. I think that has gone, which is great. Obviously, it's a choice. It depends on people's circumstances. And then really it's been up to me. So I've had some involvement with some of the military charities, with RAFA and the Bend Fund, and the amazing organisation of the RAF Widows, together with SAFA, which is obviously a tri-service organisation. And then there's been there's many fun events to go to, but I don't go out there looking for events to attend and ask to sort of come on station visits and that sort of thing, because actually this is Rich's job, and it's for him and his team and the Air Force to work out what they need to be doing. You don't need me piping up and going, oh, I'd like to go and do that, or I'd like to go and do that. That just creates work for people, which I just don't want to do.
Yeah. And you mentioned your charitable side of things that you do. What have you been your favourite ones? What are you most proud of? And what are the ones that you would like to highlight if on this podcast for families that might be listening?
But of the military charities,
Yeah.
well, obviously one highlight was coming to your book launch,
Oh no.
which is the first event I attended.
I know the first
Yeah,
one.
no, it really was. Yeah, which was really cool, because I confess I didn't know much about Millspo apart from what you told me, and met some really amazing women, and heard all about it. So I've become a bit of an evangelist since then. I suppose, so what have I enjoyed? I just enjoyed learning more on the charity side about the support that there is out there for military families and RAF families in particular. The range of support that, particularly from the Benevolent Fund and from RAFA, that can be offered, and SAFA as well. I was just talking about the RAF ones. The range of support, from support for those with disabilities or sudden ill health, to housing issues, to RAFA kids, to from the enormous kind of support towards housing and people who are really struggling, to the small things that can make a really big difference, helping somebody in the block travel home to see a very ill relative in the north of Scotland, those sorts of things, amazing stuff. So I think it's less been an event that I've found amazing about the charities. It's been more around just understanding really how much support there is out there and what great work they do to support our personnel and their families.
Yeah, and so if I mean if you see me on LinkedIn, I'm normally on my little soapbox. I like to dust it off very so often to talk about how brilliant military families are because for me, I believe that it's the key to it all. Basically, if my husband has support, he can go off and do his job to his best of the ability, and then he knows that home is safe and everybody's looked after, and it's all good. And I know this, and I'm shouting about this very loudly. But there's a lot of conflict within the military and the Air Force with operations and budgets and all of these very important things. Do you think, from the rooms that you're in, from the people that you're talking to, that military families are at the heart of the military community in the same way that I do? And do you think that people realise that we're quite important?
I think they do. I think they do, and that's my experience certainly from the charities that I speak to, from from people like Rich. I mean, Rich knows only too well. He talked about the difficult decision we'd made
Mm.
back in '07 or '09. I think it was '09 for him to basically move around the country and come home at weekends and me to stay put. That was not easy for him, for me, or frankly for our daughters. So he knows he couldn't have done that without the support of the family. And that little microcosm is true of every military family in lots of different shapes and sizes across the country. So I think it does. And I think things like the charities, but also the sort of work that Millspow's doing around business networks and enabling people to make their own way, whatever that may be, or find their own business way, does enable people to not only do that from some financial advantages of that, of course, but also some independence, and actually enables families to be happy. And if families are happy, then we'll retain them within the military, and so it's win-win-win for everybody. I think also I listened to one of your podcasts with the amazing lady who ran the recruitment firm for, her name escapes me.
Aleph
Um,
Kendrick, Recruit for Spouse.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. That was it. And she pointed out and really resonated with me how resilient military partners are, because you kind of have to be, and how flexible. And we've just talked about you don't know where you're going to be from the summer onwards, but we can kind of live in change, live in periods of change in the run up to change and afterwards. So there's a resilience there. There's an ability to be flexible. There's an ability to live with during periods of change that I think military spouses, partners, other halves take for granted, which I just don't think exists as much, or is as tested or as evident as much in those who haven't lived that life.
Yeah, and also it's so confusing for my friends and my family who they do their best, but they don't quite get it. They don't know that I won't know where I'm living in the summer.
Mm.
And they're talking about where my little boy's going to go to school and all of this stuff. And we just don't know it. It's so unknown. And the stresses of that do start to wear. So having the support is so important, but also having those people who are doing it, who are carving their own paths and doing their own thing. I was talking to a friend the other day about interviewing you, and they were like, but why? What's she got to say? And I was like, because she's this most amazing partner in this law firm. And yes, she's Mrs. Katz, but also she's doing these really amazing things, which is what I want to showcase. It's the stories from military families and how important they are. And that's why it was so nice for you to be at the book launch, so that other humans could see you and you can be this sort of this real life human that's done all the moving and the 30 odd years of RAF life. And you're still married and still smiling. And now you are balancing it all.
Yeah, well, I'll take most of that, thank you. But I think the bit about the being amazing bit, I think we're all just muddling through,
Mm.
and I think the stories bit is right. I think just hearing lots of different stories, and that's what's really struck me about the podcast. Listening back to the various different episodes, is there's different. Everybody has a different story, and there is no one right way of doing it. And I certainly don't want people to think that just because I've worked, or people have worked or haven't worked, or have moved or not moved, or done the boarding school thing or not done the boarding school thing, there's no right or wrong way. There's just lots of stories of people muddling through, which I think demonstrates that there are lots of different ways of doing it. And so each family can hopefully find their own way and not feel like they're in a funnel and there's just one way of doing it, because there really isn't.
No, and you're right, finding your own way, which brings me nicely to the question about suddenly becoming the chief of the Air Staff's wife, which is not an experience many people will have or will know about. I know nothing. I've done lots of research on you, and still it's a complete mystery what you do. every day. We talked about how you balanced it, but it hasn't been plain sailing. You've had a bit of a rubbish year. I'm not gonna lie. We've had a few with my little boy, a few health issues, and the Air Force has been brilliant. The squadron worked without him. Everybody rallied. It was brilliant, which I'm not entirely sure would have happened in another company. I'd like to think so, but
Mm.
the Air Force feels to be like a good family that looks after each other. Um, has that happened with you? Because there's a lot to juggle, a lot happening, and you've had to take some time away.
Yeah, the support of the family has been amazing. So for those who don't know, I was diagnosed with cancer last May, had an operation last May, and then 6 rounds of chemotherapy. So actually had some time out from work and now back at work part time. But the Air Force has been amazing, as has the sort of wider military family, if I can put it that way. So the charities and actually the international community, who over the years you sort of get to know, or Rich certainly got to know those international connections. Um, we took the decision to be quite open about the diagnosis, both so that we didn't have to sort of worry about who knew what and what was being said, but we were just being very open about it and what the situation was. It just felt like the right thing for us. Again, not the right thing for everybody, but felt like the right thing for us. Um, and yes, the military has been incredibly supportive to me, and just from little messages, cards, funny banter, the usual funny stuff too, which is what you would hope for and expect. But also, more importantly, actually, in many ways for Rich. I mean, I knew what I was going through. I was the one sort of dealing with the chemo at the coalface and stuff, but he was trying to still do his job and support me, support the girls, but do his job too. And actually, his team, his immediate team, but the wider Air Force have been fantastic and enabled him to just get on with it and sort of balance that. So yeah, I think sometimes when the chips are down, you really know who your family and friends are, don't you? From big stuff to small stuff, and even if they don't quite understand it, like a military move or a cancer diagnosis or whatever, you really find out who's there who will just help without being asked or help being asked. So yeah, no, I've really felt the support, which has been amazing. I didn't doubt I would, but it was still incredible to see it in action.
Yeah, I think so many of us have had tough times. I feel like the older I get, unfortunately, I am getting older, the more experience you have in life and that you have these tough times. So it's nice to hear that people have your back because the world is such a interesting place at the moment, especially when you're in a military family and you feel the pressures of sort of international policy in the world. It's a scary, frightening time. And I feel like the speaking as an Air Force family and the RAF family as a whole, it does feel like we've got each other's backs, but it is challenging. But as long as you've had that and you've had that support, it's brilliant to hear. And I hope that you are getting better and moving through it and that the support stays there. Because you've still got a couple of years as Mrs. Kaz, we could do call you Mrs. Kaz, to do. So are you getting there? How's it going?
Yeah, absolutely. So finished chemotherapy in November. I'm now on some long-term drug therapy, which is designed to get rid of or at least keep under control anything that's left of the cancer. So energies are coming back. I'm back to work part-time. And yeah, starting to look forward to some of the events and sort of being able to contribute a bit more than I was able to for the previous sort of 6 to 9 months when I was out. I missed Riat last year and I love Riat. Riat's my favourite ever event. And I wasn't well enough to go because I was having chemotherapy. So I'm looking forward to hopefully being back to some of those things and actually saying thank you to some of those people along the way that really have provided support in lots of big ways that were quite quiet ways along the way. So yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad to hear it because we've met, I think we've met twice now. We've met twice now, and you just came to my book launch. I did that thing where I was like, right, let's just invite some people and hope for the best. And you actually turned up, which didn't,
Loved
it
it.
genuinely shocked me, but also was the most wonderful thing because you had suddenly got this new, I mean, I'm going with position and instantly become the business woman in the world, I imagine. But to come there was very special to me and very appreciated. But also just meeting those real life humans that come to the book launch as well, that for a lot of Air Force wives, Army and Navy,
Mm.
to see them and hear their stories, because
Mm.
I just think that's really important. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. I loved it. And actually, thinking about it, I think you asked me what was my favourite thing or favourite event. I think earlier, I think I'm a people person. So, my job as a family lawyer is very people orientated, very family orientated. And I really like meeting people. I mean, Rich and I have that in common. He likes nothing more than getting out to the Air Force and being out on station and talking to people who are actually doing the job. That's, from what I can see, one of the best bits, the bits that he loves the most. And I share that love of actually just getting out and about and meeting people and hearing their stories. And I find that inspirational and really interesting and endlessly rewarding and yeah, motivating actually that people, so from the really positive, amazing stories to the difficult and trying to understand, what's really going on. So yeah, I think the best bit is the opportunity to get out and meet out and about and meet people, lots of different types of people from all sorts of different walks of life who are just muddling on through.
We're just muddling through. And does it remind you of where you all began? Because you mentioned before, if you'd known everything, it would have been a bit of a shock. And none of us know because the world changes, the military changes, people do silly things. But does it remind you of those sort of those early days? I have fond memories of meeting the little co-pilots that never did any work. Don't tell anybody. Never did any work, but it was Lynham and life was sunshine and brilliant. And yes, Afghanistan was happening, but it was so exciting, and the Air Force was exciting. Um, and it just changes so much. So does meeting these people and especially sort of new families that have just joined, does it remind you of that? Does it get you excited?
It really does, yeah. I mean, I still have massive imposter syndrome, which we all have. I think most people have. I've had from sort of day one. I remember, when Rich was a junior engineer on a squadron, and you'd go to a squadron event, and I'd be terrified about talking to the squadron boss, and this was all very nerve-wracking. And who was I to know? Didn't want to say the wrong thing, and all of those things. That just carries on. It just carries on. The ranks just get slightly different. And I suppose I'm really fortunate because, as I say, Rich and I met at university. He was on the University Air Squadron. So I started life going to sort of University Air Squadron events, and then he went to Cranwell and on the way through. And so I've sort of seen we've sort of grown up through it together, I suppose. So I think I'm lucky at that. We've sort of made our way together and sort of probably made lots of mistakes along the way, but have sort of got through our imposter syndrome together as well. But yeah, I there've been various people along the way who like squadron bosses, partners, or that I've looked at and thought they're amazing. That's just fantastic. The way they go about dealing with some of the nonsense that the military life throws at you, and their positivity and their kind of inclusiveness is a big thing for me. I can't be doing with cliques and little mini groups and people excluding others and all of that. And that sort of resonates with me. But I've seen a lot of uh, military partners along the way who've been in those sorts of roles who've been very inclusive, and I've always really appreciated that. So I suppose you sort of pick up hints and tips along the way as well, which I try and remember when I'm going to an event with those these days who would look at me and think, my goodness, she's old and grey and got some title that she somehow acquired along the way, and that the people would be nervous, but I've still got the imposter syndrome as well, so we'll all just be nervous together.
I love that. It's so nice to hear as somebody who has equally the very first sort of event on the base, and you've no idea what's happening, and everybody's wearing these uniforms. It's all very important, and then it inevitably turns up into a bit of a drunken evening, and everybody's just themselves. They just happen to be wearing a ball dress or whatever it is. And it is so intimidating those first few moments. So, what would you say to anybody, a new wife, a new husband, a girlfriend, a boyfriend that has found themselves somebody in the Air Force and thinks, I like this person, let's try and do this. Knowing the vast experience that you have, what would you say to that person who's just met potentially their person?
Oh wow, that's quite a big question. I think be yourself. You can only be yourself. Um, yeah, listen to the rights and wrongs. I remember going to an event at Cranwell, when Richard's Cranwell. It was like, you've got to stand here. You've got to stand here because this is the group you've got to stand in. It was one of those formal ones
Oh,
that
yes.
years ago. You've got to stand here with your partner, boyfriend, whatever, and because somebody's coming around to talk to you. And part of me was like, okay, good, I know what I'm supposed to do. And the other part of me was like, it was a bit like, who don't put baby in the corner. It was one of those kind of, what do you mean I've got to stand here? I can stand where I want. This is a big room. Of course, I stood in the right place. But you always keep the kind of the slightly feisty bit as well. So don't take it all too seriously, I think. I think just be yourself and be prepared to laugh at any mistakes along the way. And we all put our foot in it and just laugh and enjoy, lean into it all, enjoy it. See, because the Air Force life does provide some amazing opportunities as well. I mean, the events, the places you can get to go to, the people you can meet, the sort of wide spectrum of people you can meet, even on a station in the early days, and the camaraderie that is there is pretty unique actually. So yeah, there's some bumps, but also grab the opportunities, I think.
Yes, it's true. It's there's different ways of doing life, and we've all, I mean, I've done it. I've fallen for the military life is really tough and it's grey and miserable. But also sometimes there's a really good bit that's really exciting and it kind of makes up for that the tough times. I'm thinking back to Afghanistan and Iraq and those like 10 years ago when it was properly intense, but equally when they were home, it was brilliant and you lived for the moment. And that's the stuff. I think that's probably why I was still doing it 10 years later and we've been married 10 years. I think it was really tough, but it was really good. And it's the same. I think it's the same every day. So I kind of want to ask you, it's not an easy question. I'm not going to lie. Have you ever got to the point where you thought, you know what, I'm done. This military life thing, it's too much. This is nonsense. He's away. He's never here. They're always operational. The house is magnolia. The kitchen's funny. Like, what is this? I can't do this. And if you have thought that, what flipped it round?
So um, yes, of course, I've had those moments. I mean, I think anybody who says they haven't would be lying, to be honest. Of course you have, because the roller coaster is there. I think some of those moments are particularly exacerbated by RAF life. I think some of those moments are there, would be there even if Rich wasn't hadn't been serving, because there is always a pinch point, particularly if you have children, you're able to or choose to have children, and you have children, and you're trying to do the whole childcare work. Where are you living? Juggle between you and your partner. About. I think some of those pinch points just arise, like the whole, if you're employed going back from maternity leave, those sort of pinch points about don't I want to work, having had children, or might be similar pressures with an elderly relative that people are looking after, those sorts of things. So I think some of those pressures arise generally anyway. I see it in my team at work or colleagues at work who have nothing to do with the military and they have those moments around working and life. I think the military bit is just like a big overlay across the top, which can make it 10 times harder. And yeah, so how have we muddled through? Sometimes I think it's acknowledging it. Yeah, there's been occasions when, particularly when I was working and living in London for a while before we had children. Rich was up at Coningsby after many years in Scotland, and the whole Coningsby London. It just felt like another posting where we can't live anywhere near each other. That was quite a difficult kind of, where are we headed? We were in our late 20s, mid late 20s at that stage. Where is this going? And so I think just being honest about it, being honest about your feelings about it to yourself. Is this just something I'm feeling today, or is this something I feel every day? Um, and if it is something that's a theme, because we all have bad days, let's face it, if it's something that's a theme, being able to be open about it, both obviously with your partner, but also with other support networks around you, because it's only by talking to others, particularly your partner, but also others around you, that you can find ideas of, well, have you thought about this, or could you do that, or maybe think about the other, or it's another 3 months, can we do it this way, and then we'll modify it and do it differently next time. So you have to sort of be honest with yourself, I think, but then also honest with others around you, and ask for help, which is something I'm not very good at. I've had to learn to be a lot better at. I've always asked Rich for help, but wider asking for help. But certainly with the cancer diagnosis, I've got much better at that. Which a really amazing friend of mine who has nothing to do with the military said to me when I was diagnosed with cancer, and she said, you just need to, people will help you. And I said, but I don't want to ask for help. She said, you're not asking for help, you're accepting help that you just have to accept is on offer. And I think that's very true in the military context. Most people are very happy to help. And so the offer is already there. You're not asking for the help, you're just accepting it, which I thought was a brilliant reframing. And I've stolen, obviously, shamelessly.
Quite right too. And I think that is the strength of military life, especially patch life. Those instant neighbours that you have to drop your kid off with because you have the other one to look after, the other one's sick, and has only really got an egg. And it's not just an egg, it's the fact that you're making your child's birthday cake and you've not, it's all those little things that is why I think the military community is really important, and patch life is really important. I talked to somebody a while back. I think they were married for 30 years or something, and they had 17 different houses. And I said to her, "What, like, how are you doing this?" And she said, "It's because we're a team." She said, "For years and years, I used to constantly blame my husband because it was all his fault and it was his stupid job, and we were moving every 10 minutes. And as soon as I realized that we were a team and that actually the only constant in all of this moving in military life was him, that it changed my whole outlook." And that's how it's working really well. It's because it's the two of us, and we sort of, take on that next posting and take on everything we need to, as a team. So,
Yeah.
Team Knighton. I want to talk about Team Knighton. You've got these big careers, you've got all these events and these challenges, but you met at university, which is, I think you've mentioned over 30 years ago. So you're doing
Long,
well.
long
You've
time
got your
ago.
family. Not too long. It's going quick, isn't it? Life is flying by, isn't it?
It's a
Bonkers.
really long time ago.
I know, I know.
Late 1980s. So, when life was in black and white.
Oh, in the good days. Um, where's Team Knighton moving to? You're halfway through this posting. Um, this has got the potential to. I'm gonna use the word transition. I don't think it's the best word, but what is the plan? Are you gonna in the future? Is it your turn to decide where you live? Do you get to pick the holidays and where you go on holidays and all of these? This is basically what I'm asking you is when you've reached the pinnacle, what's next? And is there hope for the military partners out there? Do they get to pick something at some point?
Absolutely, definitely get to pick something at some point. I think the plan for the next year or two, or however long it is that Rich is doing this job, is just to hold on tight and ride the roller coaster. There's so much that's going on, so many incredible things that are going on in the world, obviously, but some amazing opportunities and things that we just want to sort of grab whatever opportunities there are and kind of just hang in there and experience what there is to experience, and hopefully give back to the military family that's given back so much to us, not to me and to us. Thereafter, I think there'll be a bit of taking stock, actually. I think there'll be a bit of catching breath. I think Rich will be doing quite a lot of sleeping initially. Yeah, I think the sort of tentative plan is to do a lot of the things that we haven't been able to do. So a lot of the travel, partly because of Air Force and busy jobs, but also children and caring responsibilities. So yes, my hope is that we can go and do some travel, and I love sport. So I would like to go and watch England play cricket in all the different locations they go and play cricket across the world. And I'd also like to go and watch Wales play rugby in all the different places that Wales play rugby across the world, because I'm a big Welsh rugby fan. So yeah, I think I'll get first dibs on some of those trips.
Quite right too. Yes. Well done, because you've supported each other really well in your careers, but I think you probably owed a few extra trips. So we're reaching the end, and it's been so fantastic to talk to you, mostly because it's nice to get a few tips. I'm not going to lie. My military life has been bonkers all over the place. But it's nice to know that you feel that too. And I know that other people, if I feel it and you feel it, there'll be loads of people feeling it. But before we end, I was just wondering if you had anything else to add, or if there's, yeah, anything you want to say, really.
Um, no, I suppose I'd just say uh, the last thing I'd want is, well, there's so many different ways of doing this. There isn't one way of doing this. Our life has turned out in a very amazing way, with Rich doing a fantastic job, and we're just really fortunate. And yeah, your word team does resonate. I think we sort of muddled through as a team along the way. But I think it's just for everybody to find their own way, but also know that there is no one right way out there. And yes, there's been a lot of tears and a lot of kind of trying to figure it out along the way, and a lot of compromises. And a lot of good is good enough. My house is a tip, like other people's houses are tips. You can't be we're all perfectionists in many ways as business owners or people interested in businesses, but good is good enough. And you can't be, sometimes you just got to get through a few weeks or a couple of months or a deployment or whatever it is, and accept that the lawn will still be there, the children will still be fed and watered, but you might not have done it in the sort of idealistic, perfect way that Instagram tells you should. And just keep smiling and talking to people, and know that you're not alone, that there's lots of people out there on the patch or within the squadrons or within the military charities or whatever it is who are just also trying to muddle through, but are there to help. And as long as people feel that support, I think that's a good thing. I certainly felt it along the way and have needed it a lot along the way. So yeah, and just keep going, I think. Keep smiling, keep laughing, keep going.
Just keep going. I think that is our motto for Military Life, and embrace all the opportunities because is good, shiny, sparkly bits amongst the chaos. It is good fun. I must say I'm having good fun. Yes, it's really tough, and I can't believe I'm moving house again, but it is a good fun life. Lady Knighton, Caitlin, still very strange that I'm saying that. I was my poor granny. So this is, I mean, I might chop this out, but we don't ever know. My lovely granny was married to an Air Force sergeant in World War II, and would be equally proud and slightly mortified that I'm talking to you and calling you Caitlin. It's quite an exciting thing for me. I cannot tell a lie. So I'm so chuffed that you came on the podcast because you cannot be what you cannot see. I don't think I want to be Chief the Air Staff's wife, but I like to see powerful women doing epic things who just also happen to be married to like powerful people. I think that's a really important story to share. And the fact that you've made it work despite all the muddling through, I think it's really important that you've come to talk to me. So I very much appreciate it. And thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me on the podcast. Absolutely loved it. Lovely to see you again, as always. And thank you for all that you do with Millspow. I really appreciate it.